Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. A week later, to an episode of GOTR, Google Trends Investing with myself, Nolan. I'm not rocking a Dumb Money shirt, but the Saco River Brewing up in Maine. I actually did the logo for my uncle's microbrewery. Check them out. But yeah, we'll dive right in here to some of the trends. So thanks guys for checking out the last video. I have a bit of an outline of companies I want to get to. So I'm going to try to get to ozone and Yandex, some Russian stuff. We're going to get to Tesla in China, Mercado Libre, Jumia and Shopee, hitting on Free Fire for Shopee slash C Limited, a little bit more diving into Shopify, some Amazon workers elements, another data source to potentially dive into around hiring people as a data source to be measuring as this goes along. I know that the Dumb Money guys are going to be doing a Cathie Wood episode hopefully this week and taking a look at this. I know TDOC also had earnings, had a couple thoughts on that. Associated somewhat is Clover Health, Chamath's SPAC. I had some thoughts there. And then I know the main one that Chris and the guys said they were diving into is going to be Roblox. So we'll end with a little bit of a dive into a trends chart I created there. So it's a bit of an outline for today, but obviously with the news of the last week and even right now, I'm recording this Sunday night, the futures market's been down. I've watched the Meet Kevin live stream on this, but we'll see how the day ends up doing. It's obviously been quite the roller coaster. I definitely do wish I'd kept a closer eye. I mean, this would have been a great way to be hedging a lot of my growth positions, was to potentially be shorting Ozone, which is an Amazon equivalent. And there are two major ones. It's one called Wildberries, one called Ozone. What I've done here is actually, when possible, especially when you're in foreign markets, is to use the aggregated, I don't know what we exactly call it, the company aggregate or the topic aggregate if you start typing it out and it gives you the options. So this is both Wildberries and Ozone. You can see Wildberries going up, Ozone. So these companies have been growing. So I think, again, who knows where the bottom is, but I will be interested if maybe there's again, all these companies, when there's a bottom found, I'm sure it's going to be a good investing opportunity there. Probably wouldn't want to touch this right now, but it is interesting that they have been having long-term e-commerce growth is not slowing down. I think it's important also to consider, so yes, when you do the Google Trends for the company, it actually aggregates the different spellings and the different kind of languages of these countries. So there's the Ozone and there's Wildberries spelled out as Wildberries. But it's important to kind of get some bit of understanding in terms of what percentage of are you capturing. So Yandex holds 44% market share according to this article from Search Engine Journal, which actually I used for, I turned to it for our clients, but Google says 53%. So it's a big chunk, but I think it's also useful still, even if I don't exactly know the numbers, I probably could have done a quick search there, but Google is behind the firewall in China. I still think though, even if you're measuring only 5% of the whole, or maybe it's even only 1% of the whole, if you can see the relative amount changing up or down. So there was an article I saw about, it was showing how used EVs, used Teslas in China are actually going for more expensive, be able to resell them at a higher price. That's how long the backlog is. So obviously Tesla needs to stay in this position where supply or demand is greater than supply while scaling demand. And again, I believe in their model being one in which is going to scale unlike other automakers. So I'll send a link in the notes here, but Dave Lee on Investing had one explaining how that 30% margin might continue. Again, you can decide if that's it or not. What I'm trying to assess here is how is demand increasing. So I did confirm a couple of the words that were coming in there of people looking at the Model Y and price in Mandarin, but the trends chart, we do see, I mean, this, I gave it, just give some perspective of just the word Neo being searched. Again, maybe that's not how it's searched there, but you can still see some relative increasing. But you see the Model Y has been basically right in line with it. There's probably a better view I had there on that shows kind of where the Model Y was without the word Neo. So again, I think search volume is definitely increasing in China for Tesla, and the Shanghai factory is scaling. I mean, it was a crazy number there, about the 30% increase over, 27% throughout the year, but there was one showing a 34% increase month over month in terms of the units of production. So that factory is scaling at a pretty remarkable rate. Transitioning a little bit, so again, I'm very much interested in e-commerce from my job. I'm interested from also having a large Bitcoin position that's kind of been a hodl position that I kind of lucked into a little bit. I have no other better way to say it, but it is now the majority of my portfolio. is crypto related and it wasn't intentional. It's more of the pullback in the other parts. But anyways, the main parts here being, I know there was Jumia, or Jumia, however you pronounce it, in Africa, reported their earnings, and I think they actually had more losses than revenue, or than I don't know. It was a report that some people might kind of balk at. But what I'm really kind of keeping an eye on is, are all these marketplaces really just showing kind of different habits around the wallet that's being used, and how easy are they, how receptive are they to using Bitcoin or another format, and especially if they're in a government where the currency is very much being debased. So here's Bitcoin as just a search as a currency. So again, the trends, the topic term aggregating them there. You can see where it is. If I toggle forward to the US, there's actually a slight dip there. I don't know if you were to see it, but Bitcoin is being searched more globally than it is in the US. So, but then again, you pick a couple countries that are obviously interesting. Nigeria, they've actually banned Bitcoin. You can see it's much higher. And then we can see it for Turkey as well, where they've had quite the currency crisis. But it is interesting to see will there be an overlap in terms of some of these marketplaces that now accept other forms of payment, and could that facilitate and make this on-ramp to digital assets be something that happens faster. Also, kind of looking at this international considerations, is a post from earlier I made, but about Shopee has looking to be slowing down a little bit. It's the search of Shopee. So again, C Limited is the company name, but Shopee is kind of the main property that I'm concerned with. If you're searching Shopee, so it's not a stock-related search, or most of these will not be. Vast majority will not be. But when you see here, again, trying to account for the different ways people might have spelled this, people search a lot as this FF for Free Fire. So Garena Free Fire had been slipping for a bit. I know they have a Free Fire Max as well. That's a paid version, but the news was in India, kind of as for a while they've had TikTok taken off the App Store. They actually, in this last couple weeks here, removed Free Fire. So they've actually been reaching out to see if that was done a mistake. We'll see what happens there. That's an interesting search volume to see in the last 30 days for people kind of looking into that. Specifically for Shopee, and in this is the Shopee Pay element of it. So actually specifically searches about how do I set up my Shopee Pay, how to do things like that, setting up the digital wallet of the C Money wallet. So kind of keeping an eye on that search is there. And then kind of transitioning back, so my kind of the main Google Trends that I had last time was BigCommerce, or Shopify and pricing, how it's clearly had the drop, which of course it did. I do see a little bit of an uptick, which is encouraging. A friend of mine was asking, like, what do I do with my Shopify position? And again, I'll tell you what I'm doing with mine is that I have been trimming for the last 7 or 8 months. I wish I'd done slashing when I kind of could see that, hey, this is pulling back. You can see my old video that I did from right at New Year's last year, is that I knew there'd be a pullback. And I said at that time it'd be a buying opportunity. I think a more interesting thing to keep an eye on, though, is this trend of headless commerce. So it's where the front end and the back end of your e-commerce site is not connected. So and how that could maybe open things up a little bit. It's not a specific, there are some ones, and Shopify actually has a solution there. I want to learn about headless commerce, which is my job and for investing purposes. So anybody that's expert in the space or knows somebody there or articles, please send them my way. Interesting to keep an eye on that. Ahead, obviously, Amazon's Project Santos. Amazon's kind of talking about creating a competitor to Shopify when they used to have one. Again, I shared that in my last video, a video from a year ago about Project Santos, and we'll see what it ends up being. But there was an interesting thread about that. I know Shopify is really concerned with arming the rebels, is kind of what Toby, the CEO, talks about, but there are certain things that are really struggling. So which they could have an advantage over in Amazon. I think lifetime value, if you want to create this actual customer relationship, how do you actually own that? And it's amazingly challenging. A lot of my clients really struggle to know, hey, if we acquire a customer, what's the odds they're going to come back? How much are they worth to us in 5 years? You think it's a challenge that's easily solved, but it's not. So if they could do a lot more to help that, make it easier. Again, because they're so large, there's a lot of ad data that could potentially be shared. And if you're in the Shopify ecosystem, you can share that data. Again, obviously that could go both ways, and then they need to solve shipping. I mean, if people are expecting 2-day shipping as the low end things nowadays, they need to find some kind of way, and I know they've kind of waved the white flag in some regards, so we'll see what happens in that front. But there was a really good thread that was shared, and I have used Built With as a good tool. So again, it's basically a search engine for the back-end coding of the site to see how many sites are using whatever web technology there. As far as an Amazon, again, it's still a very large, second largest position of mine, and we can see that in the last year, the employee count increased by 24%, which is a pretty remarkable number to get to 1.6 million. Again, that percentage might slow down a little bit, but they're going to get 2 million people. So there's actually a search here of the actual app you use called Amazon A to Z. So kind of keep an eye on that to see how that changes of where their different hiring spikes may or may not be. Something I'm just kind of keeping an eye on there. This is kind of what I just watched a few videos on people kind of setting up the app, how you request time off, things like that. And this is kind of just gives you an idea of what if you search A to Z, you're probably downloading the app or logging into the app. And again, the employees hiring over the years is pretty remarkable, and I bet that has some correlation to stock price over time. Obviously, things will swing as macro pulls in and out. There is somebody I really follow who's an expert in this area as far as following hiring. Is in one, Reveal Era probably is how you pronounce it. When you hover over it and you see it's revealed, then the word era. But some interesting tools. I like to use it more often than I do. If anyone's found useful information with this, please send it my way here. I know that the Dumb Money guys were talking about potentially doing that Cathie Wood episode on kind of when will it be right time for growth again. So TDOC's obviously been her highest conviction position in terms of scaling into it, exiting positions like Palantir to get into TDOC. So again, I've been trying to figure out what does she know that other people don't know? I know they had earnings and it wasn't the best. And you look at the S curve on revenue, it definitely seems to be in the flattening out part of the S curve. So I don't know. I mean, this is using telehealth as a way to kind of get a read for, again, kind of like a TAM, kind of like gauging the market of how close can you get to the overall market term. And TDOC minus the word stock is leading the way in some of these other areas. And if you remove the word stock, it has been scaling of late, so there's some optimism there to see if that's something that's going on in the right direction. As a bit of a kind of, again, I want to show more of the ways in which I fish rather than showing you what the fish I might have caught or if I caught junk. But I always like taking the company name and the word versus to get an idea of what maybe the competitors are and then plucking some of those out. So that's just kind of showing the process. So I know if I did this for Shopify versus, I would have found Magento, WooCommerce, etc. as the kind of my first real kind of core win. But I'm trying to always revisit this to figure out what part of the process is something that can be repeated. But that can be applied. A part of TDOC that I am quite confident is growing is BetterHelp. So it's actually kind of online therapy. The main competitor is Talkspace. I think that's what my company uses. But you can see BetterHelp in red has been on the climb. Online therapy, again, just in kind of a bit of the a way to gauge kind of how is the overall market doing. They're definitely getting closer to the top there, so that's an encouraging sign. So I think there's something to be encouraged about TDOC on that side. Again, still monitoring it, don't have a position right now. Livongo is obviously the big acquisition, and you can see the searches have been relatively flat, which I think is good because there's no longer people searching it relating to the stock. I removed the merger and stock and things like that, and it's been pretty helpful. These are the kind of terms that come in there now. So these are user intent type searches. So hopefully maintaining is a good thing, but I'd also want to see that be growing at some point. Also in the space, Chamath, who's this our SPAC guy. Obviously, he's a bit of a polarizing guy. I still watch basically every episode of the All In podcast, but Clover's down 80%. I do think I want to kind of show this as one example of when a stock is kind of in a meme territory and kind of how you can tell that it's not going to really trade based off of Google Trends as much as it's going to be just on what the buzz is about it. And I have the actual Google Trends chart up in a moment there, but it is interesting. I mean, some of these, I think the term that I'd most want to bank on if this term ever were to increase is Clover and Medicare. If I saw that really increasing noticeably, that's where I'd be most interested in it. Clover and benefits is a pretty solid term. Clover and insurance, because there is a Clover point of sale system, providers, coverage, and so forth. It is interesting when you just, I guess maybe my face is in the way here, but Clover and stock, I guess I can't get myself out of the way. I'll hopefully figure that out in another episode, but even just looking at this one point here, when the search volume around the stock or the ticker symbol, so you can also go to CLOV, is that much close to like the head term, you know that it's the investors are actually more interested in the stock than they, which could be a good thing, but I want to see real actual user adoption. So that's kind of an area to be in a warning sign around. Again, just a reminder, I try to include GOTR and then the ticker symbol as a way for me to go back and look at things and quite easily go back and then open and expand. The one I've already have it loaded up here. Probably the main, if I were to create like a dashboard type Google Trends chart for Roblox, I know that Chris said this one he's going to dive into this week, here it is, Roblox and the word how. And I do this for a lot of companies. If it's like, how do I use this thing? How do I install a Google Analytics code on Shopify? So all the terms that have how in the company name is a good way to get a read on the company's like actual user search interest. And then the term that I probably most care about for Roblox is their digital currency of Robux. You can see there's obviously a very interesting tight correlation of that has dipped a little bit. It is interesting. Here's that same element of Clover showing you how high the stock related search volume is. Here it is with the ticker symbol and the word Roblox and stock. Little spikes at certain points, but I think relatively healthy as far as where we're at with that. I'll try to figure out my face to be a little lower on the other videos or higher. I'll figure out a better place to do this. And then again, I also like another way to get a read on how things are doing recently is the actual date. So this is actually like Roblox 2022. So anything with the word 2022 plus 2021 plus 2020. So it ends up normalizing all out, or I should say smoothing all out. So I like seeing that in green has been kind of steadily increasing, but it has plateaued of late. So I had a Roblox position back in the middle, but I needed to kind of realize some losses. So that I don't have a Roblox position currently, but it's one that's definitely on my radar to monitor as we go forward. I did have a Google Trends chart. I don't have it up here, but it was pretty remarkable how you put Roblox compared to Minecraft, and Roblox is still quite a bit of ways away from Minecraft. So again, Roblox is good. Maybe that's an encouraging sign they can get closer to it, but I'd want to keep an eye on that. Maybe go deeper on Roblox later, but if there's any other stocks that you want me to dive into, please let me know. I got a couple suggestions. I think the Clover was one that people reached out to me on, but it's easy for me to respond on Twitter, and I'll try to do my best on in the comments section below. But remember, let the trend be your friend, and thank you guys for watching. Bye.